Hey, Stoic warrior, take a moment and look around you. Look at the world we're living in right now. Every single day, people are desperate to prove something to someone. They prove they're right in arguments that don't matter. They prove they're worthy of love, attention, and respect. They explain themselves endlessly, over-explain until their words lose all meaning, and sometimes they even beg, yes, beg, just to be seen, just to be acknowledged, just to feel like they exist in someone else's world. But the Stoic doesn't do any of that. The Stoic doesn't beg for attention like a starving dog hoping for scraps. The Stoic doesn't chase validation like it's the only air they can breathe. The Stoic doesn't explain himself to the world because he understands something most people never will, that silence is not weakness, silence is strength. That silence is not emptiness, silence is power. That silence is not giving up, silence is rising above. Now, watch what most people do when they're hurt, rejected, or misunderstood. Watch closely, because you've probably done this too. They rush, they panic, they chase. They try to fix what's broken by explaining themselves to people who have already decided they don't want to understand. They pour their hearts out to ears that are already closed. They offer their souls to hands that have already let go. And that right there, that desperate scramble for understanding, that is weakness pretending to be courage. It's fear wearing a mask and calling it self-love. Think about this scenario. You call someone and they don't pick up. Your heart sinks. You text again. You message again. You check your phone obsessively. Finally, you pour your heart out in a long paragraph, hoping they'll finally see your worth, hoping they'll finally understand how much you care, hoping they'll finally give you the response you're desperately craving. But here's the brutal truth that nobody wants to tell you. The more you explain, the more you beg, the more power you give away like it means nothing. Every word you type in desperation is another piece of your dignity that you're handing over to someone who may not even deserve it. And that is not Stoic. That is not strength. That is not wisdom. That is the opposite of everything the ancient Stoics stood for. The Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca, they mastered the power of silence. Not because they didn't care, they cared deeply. They cared about virtue, about honor, about living a life of meaning. But they understood something fundamental about human nature. They understood that the more we value things outside our control, the less control we have over our own lives. They understood that our peace should never be held hostage by someone else's opinion. They understood that our worth should never be determined by someone else's recognition. Epictetus said it perfectly. When you chase someone's attention or beg for their understanding, you're handing over control of your emotional state. You're saying, my peace depends on how you respond to me. You're saying, my happiness is in your hands. You're saying, I can't be okay unless you make me okay. But that is not peace. That is not freedom. That is a prison of your own making. And the key to that prison is in someone else's pocket. Real strength is when someone disrespects you and you walk away without a word, not out of pride, not out of anger, not out of ego, but because your dignity doesn't need to scream. Your dignity doesn't chase. Your dignity doesn't explain itself. Your dignity silently detaches from anything that doesn't honor it. Your dignity walks away because it knows its own value and doesn't need someone else to validate it. This silence is not emptiness. This silence is not defeat. This silence is discipline at its highest level. It is self-respect in its purest form. It is inner strength that whispers, I don't need to be heard by you to hear myself. I don't need to be validated by you to know my worth. I don't need to be understood by you to understand who I am. And this silence terrifies people. It terrifies them more than any angry words ever could. Because when you don't react, when you don't explode, when you don't beg, when you don't chase, they lose the control they thought they had over you. They lose the power they believed they possessed. They lose the satisfaction of seeing you break. Your silence becomes the most powerful weapon in your arsenal, and they don't know how to fight it. So today, we're going to talk about the kind of silence that builds power, not weakness. The kind of silence that makes people wonder what changed. The kind of silence that lets your absence speak louder than any message you could ever send. The kind of silence that transforms you from someone who chases to someone who is chased. We're going to break down 6 deep truths today. 6 reasons why silence is a Stoic superpower. 6 reasons why those who practice it never chase, never beg, and never explain themselves to people who don't deserve an explanation. If you're tired of overgiving, if you're exhausted from being misunderstood, if you've ever chased someone who walked away from you, if you've ever begged for closure that never came, if you've ever explained yourself to someone who didn't care to listen, this is your moment. This is your turning point. This is the moment you shift from seeking validation to finding peace within yourself. Let this be the reminder you didn't know you needed, but your soul has been craving. Point 1. Your silence makes them feel your absence more than they ever heard your words. There's something strange and wonderful that happens when you finally stop explaining yourself. Something almost magical. When you stop chasing, when you stop begging, when you stop trying to be heard, people suddenly start to think. They start to wonder. They start to question. That's the beautiful paradox of silence. It doesn't push, it pulls. It doesn't attack, it attracts. It doesn't weaken you, it strengthens you. Now think about the last time someone hurt you. Think about the last time you felt rejected, ignored, or disrespected. Your instinct probably screamed at you. Say something. Fight back. Defend yourself. Prove your worth. Make them understand. Make them see what they're losing. Your ego demanded a response. Your pride demanded revenge. Your pain demanded to be heard. But here's the thing that experience teaches us. The more you talk, the less they actually listen. The more you chase, the faster they run away. The more you explain, the less value your words carry. You become background noise. You become something they can easily dismiss. Your words lose their weight because you've thrown them around so carelessly. But when you go silent, something shifts. Something changes. Suddenly, they notice your absence more than they ever noticed your presence. They realize the space you filled. They recognize the warmth you brought. They understand what they had, but only after it's gone. That's the power of silence. It creates a void that cannot be filled by anyone else. Albert Hubbard said it beautifully, "He who does not understand your silence will probably not understand your words." Think about that for a moment. If someone couldn't understand you when you were quiet, why would they suddenly understand you when you're loud? If they couldn't see your worth when you were present, why would they see it when you're pleading? If they couldn't appreciate you when you were giving, why would they appreciate you when you're begging? The Stoics understood this thousands of years ago. They knew that silence makes people uncomfortable in ways that noise never can. Noise is familiar. Noise is expected. Noise can be managed and manipulated. But silence is unknown territory. Silence makes people question themselves. Silence forces them to confront their own actions, their own choices, their own treatment of you. When you go silent on someone who expected you to beg, you've done something powerful. When you withdraw instead of react, you've done something profound. You force them to confront something deeper than your words ever could. You force them to confront their own actions. You force them to look in the mirror and see what they've done. You force them to sit with their own guilt, their own shame, their own recognition of what they've lost. See, silence holds up a mirror. It says, "I saw what you did. I felt how you treated me. I noticed how you made me feel. But I value myself too much to explain it to you. I respect myself too much to beg you to treat me better. I honor myself too much to chase after someone who doesn't want to be caught." That kind of silence doesn't come from ego. It doesn't come from pride. It comes from clarity. It comes from finally understanding your own worth. You realize something crucial. If they cared, they would have asked. If they respected you, they would have reached out. If they were emotionally mature, they wouldn't need a paragraph to understand your worth. They wouldn't need you to explain why you deserve basic decency. They wouldn't need you to beg for what should have been given freely. So you stay silent, and in that silence, you reclaim all the power you once gave away. You stop wasting your precious energy trying to be understood by people who don't even understand themselves. You stop trying to heal through conversation because you've finally realized that some wounds don't heal through words, some wounds heal through distance. Some wounds heal through time. Some wounds heal through silence. And yes, it's going to be uncomfortable. Your silence will trigger them. It will confuse them. It will make them ask questions they never asked when you were speaking. Questions like, why isn't he reacting? Why didn't she respond? Did they stop caring? Did I do something wrong? What changed? That's when the power shifts completely. That's when you go from being the one who chases to being the one who is chased. That's when you go from being the one who begs to being the one who is sought after. Because silence speaks one truth that they simply cannot ignore. One truth that your words could never convey. One truth that changes everything. You don't owe them an explanation. Not anymore. Not ever. Your peace is not up for negotiation. Your worth is not up for debate. Your silence is your answer, and it's the only answer they're going to get. Point 2. When you stay silent, you finally hear the truth louder than ever before. The world is loud. It's so incredibly loud. Everywhere you turn, there's noise. There's chatter. There's advice you didn't ask for. There are opinions you don't care about. There are voices telling you what to do, how to feel, who to be. But silence. Silence helps you listen. Not to others, you've been listening to others your whole life. Silence helps you listen to yourself. And that is the most important voice you will ever hear. In moments of heartbreak, betrayal, confusion, or disappointment, most people run to others for advice, validation, or a temporary emotional fix. They call 5 friends and tell the same story 5 different times. They scroll endlessly through social media, looking for comfort in strangers' posts. They confront the person who hurt them, hoping the right conversation will heal the wrong relationship. They talk and talk and talk, filling the silence with words that don't actually solve anything. But the Stoic does something radically different. The Stoic goes silent, not because he doesn't feel the pain, he feels it deeply. Not because he's cold or unfeeling, he feels everything intensely. But because he knows that real answers don't come from noise. They don't come from other people's opinions. They don't come from scrolling through social media at 2 a.m. They come from reflection. They come from stillness. They come from the quiet moments when you finally stop running from your thoughts and start listening to them. Marcus Aurelius understood this completely. He wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this, you have the power to revoke at any moment." Think about what he's saying here. The pain you feel isn't really caused by what happened to you. It's caused by how you're interpreting what happened to you. It's caused by the story you're telling yourself. It's caused by your judgment of the situation. And here's the beautiful part. You have the power to change that interpretation at any moment. You have the power to revoke your pain. You have the power to see things differently. But you can only do that when you're silent enough to hear your own thoughts. When you get silent, truly, deeply, uncomfortably silent, the mind begins to calm down. The noise starts to fade. The panic starts to subside. And when the mind calms down, the truth rises to the surface. It bubbles up from somewhere deep inside you. Truths you've been avoiding. Truths you've been running from. Truths you've been too scared to face. And you begin to hear things like, "They never really respected me. I just didn't want to accept it." You begin to hear, "I'm not angry because they left. I'm angry because I stayed too long. I'm angry because I ignored every red flag. I'm angry because I didn't respect myself enough to walk away sooner." You begin to hear, "I don't need closure from them. I need peace within myself. I don't need their explanation. I need my own acceptance." These truths don't come in a text message. They don't come through a phone call. They don't come from your friends telling you what you want to hear. They come in the quiet hours. They come when you stop explaining and start listening. They come when you stop defending and start reflecting. They come when you stop running and start standing still. Silence gives you space to separate your emotions from your values. Because when you're hurt, when you're wounded, when you're bleeding emotionally, your emotions scream at you. They scream, chase them. Explain yourself. Prove your worth. Make them see what they're losing. Fight for this. Don't give up. But when you're silent, when you finally quiet those screaming emotions, your values whisper. They whisper, hold your dignity. Protect your peace. Let them go. You deserve better. You are enough. This is why Stoics didn't react quickly. They didn't make decisions in anger. They didn't respond to provocation. They embraced a kind of sacred stillness. A pause before the storm. A moment of reflection before any action. They understood that wisdom comes from stillness, not from panic. Modern society teaches the exact opposite. Speak your mind. Tell them how you feel. Don't let anyone disrespect you. Fight for what's yours. Never back down. But here's what most people miss. You don't gain respect by reacting louder. You gain respect by staying grounded in silence while everyone else spirals in noise. You gain respect by being the calm in the chaos. You gain respect by being the stillness in the storm. The more silent you are, the more people reveal themselves. You don't have to ask, do they care? Their actions will show you. You don't have to beg for clarity. The truth comes out in your stillness. People show you who they really are when you stop performing for them. When you stop giving them your energy, when you stop feeding them your attention, when you stop chasing their validation, their true colors emerge. And most importantly, you stop reacting to life and start responding with purpose. You stop being a puppet whose strings are pulled by every emotion. You stop being a leaf blown by every wind. You become a tree with deep roots. You become a rock that the waves crash against but cannot move. Silence isn't passive, it's focused, it's intentional. It's the doorway to inner wisdom that most people never walk through because they're too busy talking. They're too busy explaining. They're too busy defending. They're too busy proving. So when you're unsure, when you're overwhelmed, when your emotions are clouded, when you don't know what to do, don't act. Don't react. Don't respond. Be still. The answer isn't outside, it's inside. And you'll only hear it in silence. You'll only find it in stillness. You'll only discover it when you stop running and start listening. Point 3. Begging for closure is one of the most painful forms of self-betrayal. Let's talk about something that many people never have the courage to admit. Something that hurts to acknowledge. Begging for closure often ends in more pain, not peace. It rarely brings resolution. It rarely brings understanding. It rarely brings the healing you're seeking. In fact, it often makes everything worse. We all crave closure. We all want that final conversation. That one honest exchange. That explanation that makes everything clear. That apology that makes everything right. That understanding that helps us move on. We want the ending to feel complete. We want the story to make sense. We want to understand why someone hurt us, why they left, why they stopped caring. But here's the brutal truth that nobody wants to tell you. If someone truly cared about you, you wouldn't have to beg for closure. You wouldn't have to chase them for an explanation. You wouldn't have to demand a conversation. They would give it to you with respect. They would give it to you with dignity. They would give it to you because they valued you enough to not leave you hanging. And if they don't give you that respect, if they don't offer that explanation, if they don't provide that clarity, your silence is the closure. Your silence is the answer. Your silence is the ending that you need. Epictetus offered this powerful guidance: don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. Now, this quote might not seem directly connected to closure at first. But here's how it applies to your life. When you stop chasing closure and start embodying your values, you stop needing other people to validate your pain. You stop needing them to explain why they hurt you. You stop needing them to make sense of something that will never make sense. The pain is real. It's deep. It's valid. No one is denying that. But needing them to explain why they hurt you, needing them to help you heal, needing them to give you permission to move on, that's you giving them control over your healing process. That's you handing over the keys to your emotional freedom. That's you saying, I can't heal until you make me feel better. Here's the cycle that traps so many people. Step 1. Someone hurts you deeply. Step 2. You demand answers from them. Step 3. They respond with coldness, avoidance, or indifference. Step 4. You feel even worse than before. Step 5. You try again, hoping for a different result. And the cycle repeats endlessly, draining you of energy, dignity, and peace. It continues until you finally realize what you should have known all along. Closure isn't something they give you. It's something you give yourself. It's something you create within yourself. It's something you find when you finally go silent and walk away. It's something you discover when you stop looking for answers from people who don't have them. It's easy to convince yourself of certain things. If I just tell them how I feel, they'll understand. If I just explain my side, they'll see. If I just get one last talk, everything will be okay. These are lies you tell yourself because the truth is too painful to accept. The truth is that you're trying to talk to someone who already made peace with hurting you. You're explaining yourself to someone who's already made their choice. You're wasting precious energy hoping someone else will fix your broken expectations. That's not closure. That's not healing. That's self-abandonment. Stoics knew that emotions can cloud our judgment, especially when ego is involved. You want to be seen as the good one. You want to be understood. You want them to finally get it. You want them to realize what they did wrong. You want them to acknowledge your pain. But chasing that is a betrayal of your own growth. It's a betrayal of your own healing. It's a betrayal of your own self-respect. Real closure is something else entirely. Real closure is you recognizing that what they gave you was the most they were capable of giving. Real closure is you accepting that no amount of explanation will make them more respectful, more loving, or more honest. Real closure is you stopping the endless waiting for a conversation that will never happen. Real closure is you finally accepting that some people will never give you the answers you deserve, and being okay with that. And in that acceptance, your power returns. Let this sink in. The people who hurt you don't need to understand your worth, you do. The people who left don't need to say goodbye, you can say it without a word. The people who ghosted you don't need a second chance, your silence is their answer. The people who disappointed you don't need to apologize, you can forgive without their words. The people who broke your heart don't need to fix it, you can heal it yourself. So stop writing those unsent letters. Stop rehearsing the perfect message. Stop crafting the ideal speech. Stop chasing closure in people who were never open in the first place. Stop looking for answers from people who don't have them. Go silent, and let your silence be the space where self-respect finally breathes again. Let your silence be the place where healing begins. Let your silence be the start of your new chapter. Point 4. Silence exposes what words are always trying to hide. When you go silent, something powerful happens. Something almost magical. Masks fall off. Disguises slip away. Pretenses crumble. People reveal who they really are. It's amazing to watch. It's painful to witness. But it's necessary to see. Words can be beautiful. Words can be poetic. Words can move mountains. But words can also be deceptive. Words can be used to manipulate. Words can be used to confuse. Words can be used to hide the truth. People say what sounds right. They say what they think you want to hear. They offer justifications that don't justify anything. They offer apologies that aren't really apologies. They offer explanations that explain nothing. They use language to create a version of reality that doesn't actually exist. But silence cannot lie. Silence cannot be manipulated. Silence cannot be twisted. Silence is pure. Silence is honest. Silence is the truth that words try to bury. Ralph Waldo Emerson captured this truth beautifully. What you do speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say. Think about that. Your actions, your behavior, your patterns, they speak so loudly that your words become meaningless. Your words become white noise in the background of your actions. People will believe what you do, not what you say. People will trust your patterns, not your promises. People will respect your consistency, not your explanations. The Stoics understood this deeply. They didn't judge a person by their apologies. They judged them by their patterns. They didn't evaluate someone by their promises. They evaluated them by their consistency. They didn't measure people by their words. They measured them by their actions. And the best way to see someone's true pattern is to stop talking and simply watch. To stop engaging and simply observe. To stop reacting and simply notice. Because silence is not passive. It's observant. It's aware. It's attentive. When you stop explaining yourself, you give people space to reveal their real nature. You give them room to show you who they truly are. And trust me, they will. They always do. The one who truly respects you will miss your presence and reach out with honesty. The one who truly values you will notice your absence and come forward with sincerity. The one who truly cares about you will feel your silence and respond with maturity. But the one who only used you, they will vanish like smoke. They will disappear like morning fog. Because they never truly valued you in the first place. You were just a means to an end. You were just a convenience. You were just a temporary comfort until something better came along. And the one who manipulated you, they will grow angry or confused. They will become frustrated or aggressive. Not because you did something wrong, but because they lost control. They lost their grip on you. They lost their ability to manage you. They lost their power over you. Your silence exposed them. Here's what most people don't realize. Words can create elaborate illusions. Words can build castles of lies. Words can paint pictures that don't exist. But silence reveals objective reality. Silence cuts through the illusion. Silence shows you what's really there. You don't need to confront them. You don't need to test them. You don't need to challenge them. Just withdraw your words and see what happens. Just become silent and observe. Just step back and watch. See who checks in when you're quiet. See who disappears when you stop giving. See who gets frustrated when they can't provoke a reaction from you. See who becomes angry when they can't manipulate your emotions. That's the truth. And it's brutal, but it's necessary. It's painful, but it's liberating. It's hard to see, but it's impossible to ignore once you've seen it. Sometimes silence hurts more than 1,000 confrontations. Sometimes silence cuts deeper than any angry words. Because people can dismiss your words, they can argue with your opinions, they can debate your points, they can reject your perspective. But they cannot dismiss your absence. They cannot argue with your stillness. They cannot debate your silence. When you stay quiet, you stop feeding their illusion. You stop playing their emotional games. You stop pretending that their words mean more than their actions. You stop buying the story they're selling. You stop accepting the narrative they're creating. You become a witness to reality, not a participant in their fantasy. And this kind of silence, this deep and intentional silence, it brings you clarity. You stop needing people to explain why they treated you badly. Because their silence, their distance, their actions, they already told you everything you need to know. They already showed you who they are. They already proved what they value. You start trusting patterns over promises. You start believing energy over explanations. You start valuing what's real, not what's spoken. You start seeing the truth, not the performance. You start recognizing the reality, not the show. That's Stoicism. It's not cold. It's clear. It's not distant. It's discerning. It's not emotionless. It's emotionally disciplined. It's not heartless. It's heart-wise. It's not indifferent. It's just not fooled by illusions anymore. So the next time someone tries to talk their way back into your life, don't rush to respond. Don't immediately believe their words. Don't quickly accept their apologies. Observe, wait, go silent, and let the truth speak without words. Let reality reveal itself. Let actions prove what words are trying to hide. Point 5. Not explaining yourself is the highest form of quiet confidence. Let's be completely honest with ourselves. When someone misunderstands you, it hurts. When they judge you unfairly, it stings. When they think something about you that isn't true, it's painful. Your first instinct is to defend yourself. Your first reaction is to explain. Your first impulse is to prove them wrong. You want to say, "That's not who I am. That's not what I meant. You've got it all wrong. Let me explain." But the Stoic doesn't chase understanding from others. The Stoic doesn't seek validation from people who have already formed their opinions. The Stoic doesn't waste energy trying to correct every misconception. Instead, the Stoic seeks understanding within himself. He seeks validation from his own conscience. He seeks approval from his own values. Why? Because explaining yourself to people who have already made up their minds is not confidence. It's fear. It's fear of being misjudged. It's fear of being misunderstood. It's fear of being seen in a negative light. It's fear of losing something. It's fear of being rejected. It's fear of being alone. Marcus Aurelius offered this profound reflection: don't waste what remains of your life in speculating about your neighbors, unless with a view to some mutual benefit. Think about that. Every time you try to convince someone of your worth, your goodness, or your loyalty, you're spending your limited time and energy on someone else's judgment. You're pouring your precious life force into convincing someone who may not even care. You're investing your valuable attention in someone who may not even deserve it. That's not power. That's not wisdom. That's insecurity pretending to be something else. The person who doesn't explain himself is not arrogant. He's not proud. He's not dismissive. He's at peace. Because he knows something important. He knows his intentions are clean. He knows his actions are aligned. He knows his value doesn't need to be translated to those who don't care to understand it. He knows his worth doesn't need to be proven to those who can't see it. This level of detachment isn't easy. It's actually very difficult. You'll be called cold. You'll be labeled selfish. You'll be accused of not caring. You'll be criticized for being distant. You might even lose people who once felt close to you. People might walk away because they can't handle your silence. People might leave because they can't manipulate someone who won't react. But guess what? Losing people who never truly saw you is not a loss. It's a gain. It's not a tragedy. It's a blessing. It's not something to mourn. It's something to celebrate. Because when people leave because you stopped explaining yourself, they were never really there for you anyway. They were there for what they could get from you. They were there for your reactions. They were there for your validation. They were there for your approval. When you stopped giving those things, they had no reason to stay. Here's the truth that nobody wants to admit. Most people don't want to understand you. They want to control how you're perceived. They want to manage your reputation. They want to define your worth. They want to limit your potential. And if your silence breaks their illusion, if your stillness shatters their narrative, if your peace threatens their control, they get angry. Not because you hurt them, but because you stopped playing their game. Not because you did something wrong, but because you became something they can't control. When you stop explaining, you start leading with energy. You stop justifying your distance. You stop explaining why you walked away. You stop defending your peace. You stop proving your boundaries. You stop validating your choices. You simply act. You simply exist. You simply be. And those who are meant to be in your life will understand that silence without needing subtitles. They will recognize your strength without needing an explanation. They will respect your boundaries without needing a justification. They will honor your peace without needing a defense. They will see your value without needing you to point it out. This kind of energy is rare. It makes people uncomfortable. It makes manipulators lose interest. It makes users walk away. It makes toxic people uncomfortable. It makes emotional vampires find another victim. But the ones who remain, the ones who stay, they respect you deeply. They admire you profoundly. They value you immensely. Because they know you won't lower your value to fit someone's misunderstanding. They know you won't shrink yourself to make others comfortable. They know you won't betray yourself to please others. That's Stoic silence. Not loud, not desperate, not theatrical, not performative, just calm, just rooted, just unshakable, just peaceful, just powerful, just free. You don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing peace. You don't need to convince anyone that your boundary is valid. You don't need to speak your value into rooms where your silence already said it all. You don't need to defend your choices to people who have already decided to judge you. You don't need to justify your existence to people who can't see your worth. Your silence is your confidence. Your stillness is your strength. Your peace is your power. And no one can take that from you unless you give it away. Point 6. Your detachment in silence is what teaches them the lesson they'll never forget. There is something uniquely powerful about a person who chooses to walk away, not in anger, not in drama, not in a theatrical display of hurt feelings, but in quiet, dignified detachment. You don't slam the door. You don't send a final emotional message. You don't post cryptic statuses. You don't seek revenge. You simply leave. You simply withdraw. You simply disappear from their life like a ghost. And in that silence, you teach a lesson that no words ever could. You teach a lesson that no conversation could ever convey. You teach a lesson that no explanation could ever communicate. Seneca wrote these wise words: "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Think about that. The real suffering doesn't always come from what happened. The real suffering often comes from what we imagine. What we replay in our minds. What we obsess over. What we can't let go of. The real suffering begins when the mind starts replaying silence, when the mind starts filling the emptiness with questions, when the mind starts creating scenarios that may never happen. When you stop responding, when you go silent, when you withdraw your energy, they're left alone with their thoughts. With their guilt, with their memories, with their regret, with their recognition of how they treated you, with the echo of your absence that reverberates through their mind. Your detachment says something powerful without words. It says, "I no longer need to prove myself to you. I will not stay where I am not respected. I've realized that peace is more valuable than any connection with someone who doesn't value me. I've recognized that my dignity is more important than your approval." Most people don't know how to handle this kind of energy. They're used to people who react. They're used to people who beg. They're used to people who fight for closure. They're used to people who break down to be heard. They're used to people who chase them. They're used to people who need them. But when you go silent, when you stop reacting, when you stop chasing, you stop playing the emotional game entirely. You exit the arena. You leave the stage. You walk away from the performance. They expected you to chase. They expected you to fight to stay. They expected you to come back. They expected you to be desperate. They expected you to be broken. They expected you to be lost without them. But you don't. You don't chase. You don't fight. You don't come back. You don't beg. You don't break. And that scares them more than any argument ever could. That terrifies them more than any angry words ever could. That haunts them more than any confrontation ever could. Because suddenly, they realize the truth. They don't have access to your energy anymore. They don't have the upper hand. They didn't think you'd really walk away. They didn't think you'd actually let go. They didn't think you'd truly be fine without them. They didn't think you could survive without their validation. That's the moment the lesson begins. That's the moment the teaching starts. Because people don't learn from words, people learn from distance. People don't change when you scream, respect me. People don't transform when you cry, love me. People don't evolve when you plead, value me. They change, if they ever do, when your absence makes them realize what they lost. They change when your silence makes them understand what they had. They change when your peace makes them recognize what they can't control anymore. And if they don't change, if they don't learn, if they don't grow, that's okay too. That's more than okay. That's perfect. Because the lesson wasn't for them. It was for you. It was never about teaching them. It was about teaching you. You learned that your peace doesn't need permission. You learned that not everyone deserves an explanation. You learned that some people will never understand and that's not your responsibility. You learned that walking away is not weakness, it's wisdom. You learned that silence isn't just strength, it's healing. You learned that detachment isn't coldness, it's self-preservation. You learned that letting go isn't giving up, it's growing up. When you detach in silence, you remove yourself from toxic patterns. You stop bleeding in front of people who aren't capable of understanding pain. You stop explaining storms to those who live indoors. You stop describing the ocean to those who have never left the shore. You stop translating your soul to those who speak a different language of the heart. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care too much about your own soul to keep it in a space where it's being neglected. It means you care too much about your own peace to keep it in a place where it's being disturbed. It means you care too much about your own growth to keep it in a garden that's not watered. It means you care too much about your own happiness to keep it in a prison of someone else's making. That's why Stoics weren't reactive. They didn't chase justice through endless confrontation. They didn't seek validation through constant explanation. They didn't find peace through others' approval. They let the silence speak for them. They let their absence do the teaching. They let their detachment do the healing. You don't have to yell, I'm done. You can just be done. You don't have to announce, I'm leaving. You can just leave. You don't have to explain, I'm hurt. You can just heal. You don't have to beg, I need peace. You can just find it. That's real power. And that's the kind of silence that terrifies the people who thought they had control over you. So don't be afraid to detach. Don't be afraid to go quiet. Don't be afraid to walk away. Don't be afraid to be silent. Detach. Go quiet. Let them sit in the space where your voice used to be. Let them wonder what happened. Let them question what they lost. Let them sit with the uncomfortable truth that you were the best thing they ever had, and they let you go. Closing reflections. If you've made it this far, if you've truly absorbed these words, you already feel it. You already sense it. There's a shift happening inside you. A quiet realization. A deep knowing. A truth you've always known but maybe forgot along the way. A wisdom that was always there but got buried under years of chasing, begging, and explaining. You don't have to chase. You don't have to beg. You don't have to explain yourself to be worthy. You don't have to be loud to be heard. You don't have to prove your side to be understood. You don't have to break your own peace just to keep someone else comfortable. You don't have to shrink yourself to make others feel big. You don't have to silence your soul to accommodate someone else's noise. You don't have to abandon yourself to be accepted by others. That's the foundation of Stoicism. That's the heart of the philosophy. It's not about being cold. It's about being clear. It's not about detachment from love. It's about detachment from chaos. It's not about not caring. It's about caring about the right things. It's about knowing what's truly valuable and what's just noise. The Stoics taught us something powerful. They taught us that silence is not weakness, it's control. It's the refusal to waste energy on what's beneath you. It's the refusal to engage with what doesn't deserve your engagement. It's the refusal to give your power away to people who haven't earned it. It's the confidence to know that your presence is valuable, even when it's gone. It's the wisdom to know that your worth doesn't depend on being seen, heard, or acknowledged. There will always be moments where your emotions want to take over. There will always be times when you feel the urge to explain, to fight, to prove, to chase, to beg. There will always be situations that trigger your deepest insecurities. There will always be people who make you feel like you're not enough. But in those moments, in those critical moments, remember this. Your silence might not win the argument, but it will win yourself back. Your stillness might not win the battle, but it will win your peace. Your detachment might not win their approval, but it will win your freedom. Because every time you choose not to react, you build inner peace. Every time you walk away quietly, you build self-worth. Every time you keep your dignity intact, you build the kind of power that can't be stolen. Every time you stay silent when you want to scream, you build a strength that can't be shaken. Every time you resist the urge to explain, you build a confidence that can't be shattered. And if there's one thing to take from this entire journey, it's this. Let your silence be your final word. Not out of ego, not out of spite, not out of revenge, not out of punishment, but out of deep, unshakable self-respect. Out of profound, unwavering self-love. Out of complete, total acceptance of your own worth. Out of the absolute certainty that you are enough. And you've always been enough. Your silence is your strength. Your stillness is your victory. Your peace is your power. Your detachment is your freedom. Your dignity is your crown. And no one, absolutely no one, can take that from you unless you give it away. Thank you for taking this journey into Stoic wisdom. If these words touched your heart, if they stirred something deep within you, share them with someone who's ready to grow. Your voice matters here, not in the noisy way the world demands, but in the quiet way that truly transforms. Not in the desperate way that seeks approval, but in the powerful way that knows its worth. Remember, your silence is your last word, and it's your most powerful one.